let's dive right in. What am I working on right now? Well, I actually have three current whips that I'm working on, and normally that's about what I like to kind of have. If I go with too many more than that, I kind of lose track of what it is that I'm doing. Actually, you know what? I have four, but one of those is kind of a secret. I can't share it because somebody that watches the channel might see this, and I can't share that one with you. So I don't like to have too many whips, works in progress, because if I have too many, then I tend to get really distracted. But at the same time, I like to have a couple or a few because I also get bored easily and I want to change it up periodically. So what I'm working on right now, I never thought that I would do this for money, like to create things for people to pay me, but I created the Cleo fedora hat and I shared that on my social media, and I had a couple of people say, "Oh my gosh, can you make one of those for me?" And I actually had figured out about how much it would cost if I was going to actually charge for it. So I told them sure, and I just got another commission. So this is going to be my third paid Cleo fedora, and so I started this yesterday, and you would think that since I've done it three times already that it would be a no-brainer, but I didn't update my pattern to say that I was going down a hook size, and the pattern calls for a 5.5 millimeter, and I've used a 5 millimeter. So once I figured that out, I had to start over. So that was one of my whoops. And then I was using the 5 millimeter. It's kind of a Clover knockoff, to be honest with you. It's a generic, it's the same style hook, but it's just one of the cheapies that I happened to get on Amazon when I was first starting out, and I had no idea whether or not I was going to actually stick with crochet.
You gotta commit.
But for this particular pattern, because it has to be crocheted a little bit tighter, I actually really like my boy hook. The problem with that is I gotta have a little cushion. So I saw one of the hacks on one of the video shorts about taking the, I don't know, it's like medical tape, but it's not tape. It's that self-sticky stuff, and I just wrapped it around to make it cushy. It's not the softest thing in the world. It's a little bit rough, but it gives it just enough cush so that when I'm crocheting with it, uh, it's not like skinny. And yet this hook is so much nicer to crochet this particular project. I'm fine with the ergonomic ones for 90% of what I do, which just says sometimes you have to experiment and switch up the hooks because they're not all hooks are going to work well for everything. So that is project number one. Project number two, I am making a popcorn garland for my Christmas tree.
Christmas? It's not Christmas.
I know, it's like May. Why am I working on this now? Well, because this is, I have a big tree. So when I looked it up, it said that it requires 8 feet per foot of tree. 8 feet of garland per foot of, and I'm like, holy moly, that's a lot of garland. So I'm shooting for about 80 feet of garland here. I think my tree is 9 feet, but I just want to make sure each and every one of these has to be crocheted, little popcorn pieces. And I figure about 8 pieces per foot. So if I do the math, 8 times 80, that's that's a lot of popcorn. And it's not my favorite thing to crochet. I mean, I've already done this once. I did it as a gift last Christmas. I did about 10 feet of it, and I think it came out beautifully. It was just, I fell in love with it, and I'm like, oh, now I have to give it away, so I want to do another one. But I'm kind of doing it in little pieces. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna like give myself, say, I need to do about 20 to 30 pieces a week, and then by Thanksgiving I should have it ready to go. So that's kind of an ongoing. And for that, I'm actually using the Hobby Lobby I Love This Cotton, which is actually one of my favorite cottons to use. It's so soft. It's not rough like a lot of the cottons that you get from Joann, the sugar and cream and the big twist cotton. They tend to be a little bit rougher, more coarse. The I Love This Cotton is super soft. So took me a while to find just the right size and type because I tried a few different things and some of the, like I started with acrylic and I'm like, you know what? I just didn't like the look of it. So sometimes you have to experiment and see how it goes. Oh, for the hat, in case you were wondering, uses Lion Brand Rewind. And I gotta tell you, if you've never used this stuff, it is amazing. It is so soft. It's actually a polyester, I think. Yeah, 70% polyester, 30% viscose, which I think is just kind of rayon. I think it's a rayon. But this works to make a hat that kind of looks like raffia, but it's so much softer than raffia. And that's what I love about it is because I don't like that coarse. It's, you know, the rough kind of scratchy of raffia is not something that I enjoy, but this stuff is so soft and when I wear it, it's so comfortable that I love this and I've actually ordered more in different colors so that I can make different colors, but this is actually the color that keeps getting ordered, so I had to order more of that too. And then one of the projects that I'm really excited about, I think it's called the American Patriot Sweater. Uh, this is not a pattern that was ever supposed to be put out. She just created it for herself. And she had so many people ask her for the pattern that she decided to publish it, but it's completely untested. It's We'll find a hand here somewhere. Uh, I feel like I'm a 5-year-old. Mom, help! Completely an untested pattern. There's not a lot of size options. There's kind of two, and they're actually pretty similar. But here's the start of it. And I will, of course, crochet some stars to attach to this sleeve, and then I'll just keep doing the bottom. And then it comes with the hoodie too, and I'm really excited about that. I have been wanting to make this sweater for a while now and getting ready to go on this RV trip. I wanted to have something that was going to be warm because when you're camping, it gets cold in the evenings. So I needed something that was going to be a little bit warmer and fun. And we'll be camping during 4th of July. So it's a perfect opportunity. So those are my current whips. Those are the things that I'm working on. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how I pick my next project because this, you know what? There are so many amazing designs out there. There are so many beautiful things to work on. There's so many categories that we can do with crochet, whether we're making cute little animals or home decor, or organization or clothing or blankets. I mean, oh my gosh, the lists are completely endless.
You have too many great choices.
So how do we decide, or how do I decide what I'm going to work on next? So I kind of have a little bit of it's a process that I go through to help make the decision on what I'm going to work on next. And the first thing that I look at is, do I have any commissions that I need to work on? So obviously, if I'm getting paid to do something, that's going to take priority. Again, I don't get a lot of commissions. This is only my third one, so it's not a big factor for me overall, but it's definitely something that I'm going to take into consideration. The next thing that I think about are projects that I have told other people that I would make for them, even if I'm not getting paid. So I love to make things for people that are going to appreciate what it is that I make. If I'm just saying, hey, I can make that for you without having talked about, charging for it, then I'm going to prioritize that over my own projects, things that I'm just doing for my own purpose. So that's kind of the next level, is first commissions and then things that I've promised to other people. Even if they're like, just do that whenever. I don't like just kind of sitting on those things. I'm like, no, I want to get it off my plate so that I can think about the things that I actually want to really be focused on. And I have nothing holding me back. And it's not just kind of weighing on me like, oh, you need to do that. So that's the next thing that I'm going to take off my list. Then I think about things that I need to make for some reason. And that might be like, I have a practical purpose for this, so it's going to kind of move up in the list. For example, right now, as we're getting ready to go on this RV trip, there are certain projects that I want to complete for the RV before we hit the road. And then those are going to kind of move up in that list, even if they're not quite as exciting. If it's like, oh, I really want to make sure that I have that done for the RV trip, then that's going to take that next step. Now we get to those things that are like, oh my gosh, this is going to be just purely for my own pleasure. What do I get to work on next that just makes me super excited? And I start looking at what season is it, or what season is coming up. I'm going to look at things right now that are going to be great for the summer, things that I can finish and use pretty quickly. So if I were going to make a hat or a scarf, I'm not going to get to use that for many, many months. So even if it makes sense because I have yarn in my stash and I have a great project set up for it, it's not something that I'm going to get to use anytime soon. So I'm going to wait on some of those things. But anything that's summer related, or maybe even into the fall a little bit, but mostly going to be the summer, those are going to be the things that I'm thinking about right now. Then I'm going to look at what's in my stash currently. Now, a lot of other people are going to do this totally different, and you know what? If you do, you're off the hook, because there's no wrong way to do this. This is just the way I look at things. So feel free to use my method as much as you want, or toss it out and do your own. But I'm going to look at what I currently have in my stash, because I love to use up the stuff that I have. And I got so many amazing yarns from my mother-in-law when I first started, and using some of those up gives me an opportunity to explore different yarns or try different things with things that maybe I wouldn't have normally. Like, there might be a pattern that says, hey, here's the pattern, here's the yarn that's used with it. Well, maybe I don't have that, or maybe it's discontinued. I can go to my stash and say, what could be substituted for this particular season? Now, again, there's going to be some seasonality in that. For example, coming into the summer, I'm probably going to avoid wools. I'm probably going to avoid some of the heavier weight yarns. I want to lean more towards things that are fingering and sport and even DKs. But if I'm doing something that's a garment, I want to kind of avoid the heavier weights. Now, of course, it might not be a garment, and therefore, that rule kind of goes out the window. But it's something to think about when I'm looking at different projects. And, some of it depends on, did I just do a garment? Then maybe it's time to do something that's amigurumi. Did I just do some quick turn projects, like, that just take me a few hours or a couple of days? Now maybe it's time to pick up and do something that's longer, that takes me a little bit longer, like that the cardigan is going to take me probably about a month to complete. With the speed that I put into it and the amount of time that I put into it, that's about how long it'll take me. So if I'm looking for a quick win, I'm probably not going to do a garment. I don't know about you, but I kind of like the satisfaction of completing a project periodically. Now, I know there's some of you out there who have so many whips. You are great at starting things, you're just not very good at finishing them. That's not me. I actually get a huge boost when I actually complete those projects. So I do like to finish those things. And that means that occasionally I like to have those quick win projects, even if I have a project that's taking me longer overall, which is why I sometimes have 2 or 3 projects going on at the same time. So I think about those things, what's in my stash, and relate that to what season it is and what type of project I'm wanting to work on at that point in time. So I'm going to go either to Notion or Ravelry or wherever it is that you kind of store your patterns. This is the benefit of digital, is you can actually sort by different criteria. And I'm going to put in the criteria that I'm looking for. For example, is it free or do I already own it? That's going to be probably the first filter that I'll use. Then if I don't find anything, then I'll undo that filter and open it up to paid patterns. But hey, I'm going to look for stuff that's not going to cost me anything first. Then I'm going to look at what season is it, what's the category of the item, and what yarn does it take, and what yardage does it take? Do I have enough of that so I don't have to spend money on it? Because again, I like to be frugal in this, in that I'm not going to spend money if I don't have to. I'm not opposed to spending money on these things, but if I already have things in the works or that I could do something with, then I'm going to do that first. Unless something's just like, oh my gosh, I like this cardi, I had to buy yarn for that because I don't have red, white, and blue yarn in my stash. But I was super excited to do it, so I went ahead and bought the yarn for it.
You caved?
And that's kind of how I organize those things and figure out what's going to come next. Now, there's still a whole world of things, so I'm just looking through and saying, well, what inspires me? What grabs my attention? I can tell you I've had certain patterns saved almost from day one that I'm like, that's going to be next. That's definitely going to be next. I'm going to work on that one next. And over a year later, I still haven't completed that. I haven't done that one because it doesn't quite excite me as much as it did at the beginning, or at least not right now. So that's okay. It doesn't cost me anything to have that saved, so that maybe someday I'll be inspired to do it. Totally fine. Saving patterns is free. One of the free things that we can enjoy in this hobby, right? It's just about what inspires you. And right now, there aren't a lot of things that are off limits to me. Like, I'm still exploring. I'm still figuring out what I absolutely love most to make. I have not yet made a blanket, but I've dabbled in a lot of other things. I've done garments, I've done amigurumi, I've done decor, I've made 18 pumpkin placemats for our Thanksgiving. So I've done a little bit of it. I've made purses, accessories, hats, all kinds of different things. But I'm just kind of exploring things, and I don't have anything off limits. And this kind of leads me a little bit to my inspiration. Well, it leads me directly to my inspiration. I don't know about you. I'm not going to say everybody is this way, but I personally feel when I see everybody else doing something, I feel a little bit of pressure, like I'm supposed to do that too. Now, they're not pressuring me. Let's be clear. They are not telling me I have to do anything, but they're all talking about it. So in my crochet group, they're always talking about making shawls. And I would never use a shawl. I have a few of them. They're absolutely stunning, but I would never wear one. So it just doesn't appeal to me to make a shawl for myself. Likewise, in a lot of the crochet groups online, like on Facebook, granny squares, like everything is about the granny square, granny square purses and granny square sweaters and granny square blankets. I just don't care for granny squares, but I sort of feel this Like, am I supposed to be doing granny squares because everybody else is?
You have to!
And yeah, there's peer pressure. And guess what? We're adults. Well, most of us probably are. Maybe there's a few kids watching, but we're all adults. We get to make our own decision. And this is where I'm giving you permission. If this is you, if you can totally relate to this, I'm letting you off the hook. You don't have to make anything that anybody else is making. If you don't know anybody that's making purses, but you are really called to make purses, then by all means, go make some purses. If you never want to make a blanket, don't make a blanket. It's totally okay. And maybe I'm saying that to myself as much as I'm saying it to you guys, but it's absolutely true. We get to be our own crafters. We get to make those decisions. And while there's probably a little bit of peer pressure out there, just recognize that for what it is and say, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to make what makes me happy. And if that means I get to keep all of the stuffies that I make, all the plushies that I make for myself, even though I'm 51 years old, that's okay. Nothing's wrong with that. If you make a whole bunch of blankets and nobody in your circle likes blankets, but you get to donate those to an amazing charity organization, wow, isn't that a beautiful thing? So I really want to challenge you to just be open to making whatever you're called to make, and don't do it because everybody else is doing it if it doesn't inspire you. Okay, what do you think? I'd love to hear from you. What are you going to let yourself off the hook for this week? Share with me in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of Off the Hook. And had so many people ask her for the pattern.